and welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. The two health units in the Northwest have seen a big drop in new COVID-19 cases this past week, and most of the previous confirmed cases are now resolved. That means there are just 18 active cases in this region, along with 35 in northeastern Ontario. Compare that to more than 1,800 in the city of Toronto alone. But despite the disparity, some area MPPs say they won't lobby the Ford government to reopen the economy in the northern part of the province more quickly. Ryan Benazzo explains.
There are 53 active COVID-19 cases that have been documented in the northern part of the province. All 18 from the Northwest region come from the Thunder Bay District Health Unit, while in the Northeast, Temiskaming has 7. There's 1 from the North Bay Parry Sound Health Unit. Algoma has reported 2, while Sudbury and Timmins have 12 and 13 respectively. Those numbers pale in comparison to more southern parts of Ontario. But Premier Doug Ford has again indicated his government won't reopen the economy more quickly here than in the south.
There is no border around Toronto, around the GTA, and sure enough, if you open up in a rural area, a lot of people are just going to head up there.
Quebec has decided to reopen some parts of that province before others. Liberal MPP Michael Gravel says he understands those who believe a regional approach would be more effective in Ontario as well, but he won't be pushing for that.
We still have not done the amount of testing we want to see done here in Northern Ontario, and that's a real factor in reopening as well. So, but I do, as I said, I do think in light of those numbers that we have now, a case can be made, and I'm not lobbying for it. I just want to make sure we do the right thing and stay safe.
And the NDP's Judith Monteith-Farrell of Thunder Bay Atikokan agrees.
We really dodged the bullet because we were actually impacted later than the larger centers. We still are in it, and we need to always listen to the people that are expert in this area.
Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
3 opposing MPs from across Northern Ontario have come together to lobby ministers from the federal cabinet. Their joint letter seeks financial relief for small airlines and seasonal tourism outfitters that are being severely impacted by the COVID crisis. Avery McRae has the details.
So can the minister tell the House if the government is planning any supports for the tourism industry?
Travel restrictions surrounding COVID-19 have put a halt to nearly all tourism in northwestern Ontario. Conservative MP Eric Malillo of Kenora, local Liberal Marcus Pulowski, and the NDP's Charlie Angus from Timmins have put aside political differences, writing a joint letter to federal cabinet ministers outlining how seasonal and tourism businesses in the region have been hit especially hard by the pandemic. The trio is also concerned about struggling air carriers which serve remote First Nations. The letter was addressed to the Ministers of Finance, Transport, Indigenous Services, and Economic Development.
We all kind of came together to write this letter is hopefully not surprising. Hopefully it's the fact that all of us elected representatives are trying to do our best for our constituents.
To see that letter written by all 3 members of federal parliament in the region, representing 3 different parties, I think addresses the needs and the issues around that sector and what they need to be able to make it through this year.
Thunder Bay tourism manager Paul Pepe says every northern tourism operator is facing different obstacles.
The industry is all in the same storm, but everybody's in a different boat on how they're able to weather it. So I think I'm hopeful in terms of federal and provincial programs that they will amend and adjust to make sure that a wider range of our industry are represented with the resources they need to weather this as best as possible.
The joint letter from the MPs requests immediate relief to help cover startup costs for seasonal tourist operators and air carriers, non-repayable loans to cover costs through summer, and expansion of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy beyond June.
Many businesses, particularly our seasonal operations, they rely on programs like the Canada Summer Jobs, which they may face difficulty accessing if they're not able to open on time.
It's devastated at the moment. So, but it's not just a problem in Northern Ontario. It's a problem obviously on the East Coast, on the West Coast.
Pepe says if restrictions carry into the summer, up to 57% of tourism businesses in Canada will close by the end of May. The MPs are hopeful their letter conveys the gravity of the situation facing the 2 groups of businesses. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Officials with Riverside Healthcare in the Rainy River District are making sure their long-term care residents are safe from COVID-19 following the advice from Premier Doug Ford. Testing began at the seniors facility located within the Rainy River Hospital more than a week ago before moving east with testing in Emo and Fort Frances. In total, all of the 160-plus residents at the long-term care homes, as well as the staff, have all been tested, and all of the tests came back negative. Riverside has also begun full staff testing at its 3 hospitals in the district, with over 250 being done already. Riverside spokesperson Catherine Puros says now is the best time to make sure staff and residents are safe.
Although there have been only 2 reported cases in the west end of the district, this is a time to advance and mature Riverside's proactive approach. We are combining current symptomatic testing with asymptomatic surveillance testing for our residents, inpatients, and staff across facilities. This is an added preventative measure to curb the spread of COVID-19 and expand protections for everyone.
The final phase will see community workers being tested, which has already begun. Riverside expects to test all of its staff by May 8th, which is over 600 people. Mayors in northwestern Ontario's border towns say they're worried about their communities for when the federal government decides to reopen the U.S. border. COVID-19 cases in Minnesota have skyrocketed as of late, with more than 4,000 confirmed and over 300 casualties. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Aside from essential travel, the most action at an international border in the Northwest stems from the construction of the bridge in Rainy River connecting Ontario and Minnesota. And while the project is slated to be finished by early fall, it's anyone's guess if Justin Trudeau will have opened the borders by that time. Rainy River Mayor Deborah Ewald may not be comfortable having cross-border travelers through her community, whether they cross on the new or old bridge.
Right now, we've been very fortunate. We haven't had a case here. There was one through our assessment center, but it wasn't in the town. And my concern is, if it starts to get here, we have a long-term care home. Like I said, an elderly population, and I fear for that more than anything.
Confirmed cases of COVID-19 have as much as tripled in a recent 3-day period in the state of Minnesota. Fort Frances has had just a single confirmed case of the virus and also borders the state of Minnesota. Mayor June Call echoes the worry by Ewald, with her community also having a high elderly population.
We need to contain it in our own country before we start letting other countries back in here, because we know that people who are out of country were the ones who probably brought the big wave in the first time with returning from other countries.
Call firmly states that health and safety of locals comes first, but she does have concerns for the number of small businesses in the area that rely upon visitors, namely the outfitters and fishing guides.
I know they are going to be in dire straits here, trying to make ends meet if they can't have any of their tourists who are already booked in to come for the summer. So it's going to be a real trial for them, that's for sure, within the next year. And even if we get past this by fall for the most part, that still doesn't do them any good.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The former owner of a funeral home in the town of Emo has been charged with fraud, among a number of other offenses. Rainy River District OPP began an investigation back in June of 2018, uncovering the fraudulent use of over $90,000 associated with a not-for-profit in Emo. 47-year-old Jason Lilly was also charged with fraud over and theft over $5,000, in addition to forgery and other crimes. He will appear in court on June 22nd. The Gull Bay First Nation near Armstrong has seen 7 of its members contract the coronavirus. That's the most of any reserve in the north, and a mobile testing center opened its doors in Gull Bay. The Blue Med Assessment Facility was set up last weekend and was officially commissioned for operation on Monday. Around 27 of the 300 on-reserve band members were voluntarily tested over the first 3 days, and test results are still pending. Chief Wilfred King spoke on Monday about the importance of testing at this time.
Right now we're looking at people over the age of 60. Anybody that's over the age of 60 is welcome to come for a test. Secondly, people that have underlying medical conditions, they're asking them to come in and test as well. And people that may have symptoms as well. So those are the 3 main groups. We've also said that we wanted all our staff to be tested as well, our frontline staff.
King is hoping the assessment center stays on the reserve for at least a couple of weeks to give every member the opportunity to get tested. A sudden death in Long Lac has led to a drug bust. Greenstone OPP responded to the death of 29-year-old Ian Shaganash last Sunday. Then on Wednesday, the OPP's Community Street Crime Unit executed a search warrant at the same address and seized 4 ounces of methamphetamine along with $7,600 in cash. Police believe the drug, in the form of a small blue rock, would be fatal if ingested. They add that people in the Northwest have overdosed or died from drugs that are made to look like medications. Shaganash's 27-year-old girlfriend has been charged with drug possession and other related offenses. Police continue to investigate the circumstances of his death. Casper Transportation has announced it's temporarily ceasing operations starting this weekend due to COVID-19. The company is suspending its passenger and charter buses around the region, as well as its route between Owen Sound and Guelph. This will also affect the freight, medical, prescription, and municipal water testing samples which they deliver. Company CEO Casper Wabinski says it's all due to low numbers during these difficult times, and he says if they don't cease operations now, there would potentially be no chance of returning in the future.
If we don't take action now, we may be in a position where we cannot operate in the future. And with the current government, they have not announced support for transportation companies quite yet. I'm very hopeful they will. I know they have announced different sorts of funding and relief for many different industries. But right now, so far, there hasn't been anything for bus transportation. And I think that's very critical if the government expects us to be here in 4 months, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it's going to be.
I have the example of that at Koken, where people will take that transportation to come to medical appointments, and some of those are still happening, and so people use that service. The other thing is that medications are provided, so Shoppers Drug Mart uses it as a way of getting medications to remote locations, and we also see that water sampling is also from communities, so that's a health concern as well.
Monteith Farrell spoke with Ontario Transportation Minister Caroline Mulrooney on Thursday and was told the province is working on a plan for businesses like Casper. She's hopeful the situation will evolve in the coming days. Meanwhile, government-funded Ontario Northland has announced it has temporarily suspended its launch of a new bus route to Thunder Bay from White River. That service was supposed to begin in late April. The ONTC has also reduced bus service on its routes in northeastern Ontario due to the pandemic. Coming up after the break, the latest plans to house the homeless in Fort Frances. Without a dedicated shelter in Fort Frances, the Rainy River District Social Services Board has turned to a local business to house the homeless population during the pandemic. This means that people living on the street will not only have a roof over their heads, but also access to all the information and supports they need. Corey Nordstrom reports.
How does a homeless person shelter in place when they don't have any place to be?
That was the question Dan McCormick and the Rainy River DSAB had to answer. And they found a solution with the Sleepy Owl, a hotel in the heart of Fort Frances' downtown where they can house the 10 to 12 individuals nightly.
It's centrally located, but you also have individual rooms with full washrooms. We have facilities here to do the laundry, so it makes it self-contained. We did take over the top floor, which is 14 rooms.
While those people appreciate having a room with accommodations to themselves, housing lead Sandra Weir says it's also important that they add a teaching element to the situation.
We're doing the daily reminders, the sanitizing, the washing, the cleaning, the maintaining, so that they're reminded every day of what's really going on out there with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Members of the OPP's Mobile Crisis Response Team, alongside workers from the Northwestern Health Unit, are also passing information along to people on the streets during regularly scheduled patrolling. Weir also hopes that they can help these individuals move on to a better situation in the long run.
We're also trying to bring in services that can also help support them for the next steps. Right now, the Sleepy Owl is temporary. Right? So what we're trying to do is find out what the issues are, if there's a way that we can help and support them, if there's applications that need to be filled out for housing, where things are with that.
Right now we have a contract with the Sleepy Owl till May 15th. Depending on what happens with the emergency order with the province, we do have the opportunity to extend easily till the end of May. And then if we had to go beyond that, we'd have to look for other solutions.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
OPP and Dryden have made a large seizure of illegal cigarettes. It came during a traffic stop Wednesday afternoon on Highway 17 west of the community. A search of the vehicle turned up 54 cases of unmarked cigarettes worth an estimated $214,000. A 62-year-old Winnipeg man has been charged with trafficking in contraband tobacco. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit received a lot of criticism this past week regarding its latest messaging about social distancing. On Monday, the health unit went on social media recommending against people organizing birthday parades. The post stated that those types of celebrations can pose road safety issues and tend to have people congregating beforehand to prepare. In recent weeks, many people have been holding vehicle parades to celebrate kids' birthdays, along with workplace retirements and other milestones. There have also been groups of teachers driving past students' homes as a way of connecting during the pandemic. The health unit's post has drawn hundreds of comments, most of them from people loudly opposed to the suggestion that the parades should be halted. Many feel the celebrations are a safe way to bring joy during these difficult times. The negative response prompted the health unit to issue a clarification. They say anyone participating in drive-by greetings should avoid gathering in groups beforehand, maintain physical distancing from people outside their household, and be conscious to not obstruct traffic. When we come back, we'll hear what's being allowed for anglers and hunters during the COVID pandemic. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, it looks like fishing and the spring bear hunt will be allowed across the region. The Northwestern Ontario Sportsmen's Alliance says after speaking with officials at the MNR, hunters and anglers will find it's mainly business as usual, with a few exceptions. Cole Promain explains.
We're not going to tell people that they should, all cram into a boat in close quarters, of course. Use common sense, be smart, maintain social distancing of 2 meters if you can, and try to enjoy the outdoors.
As we head into the warmer months, many outdoors people across the region have been curious about what limitations are in place heading into the hunting and fishing season. As it stands, the only restrictions in place involve overnight camping on Crown land and the ban on open fires. Public boat launches in some municipalities are closed due to COVID-19. All Crown boat launches are open. And although many lakes still have ice, people can already be seen fishing on area rivers. John Kaplanis, the executive director of the Northwestern Ontario Sportsmen's Alliance, says he's fielded questions from a lot of people around the region, curious about what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, one of the most common questions that we're getting right now is coming into our office is, can I go fishing with my neighbor? Can we both be in the same boat and go fishing together? And all we can say to that is when we inquired with the Ministry of Natural Resources and their enforcement division, the answer we got was the only legislated orders were in relation to the group sizes over 5.
While many other services continue to see limitations across the province, Kaplanis adds that one of the main reasons he believes the government hasn't put any major restrictions on hunting and fishing is because of the natural solitude which accompanies it.
The good part about hunting and fishing for most of us here in the north is they're largely solitary activities. So I think that's one of the reasons that the province was comfortable with saying, openly last week that they weren't going to apply any restrictions on hunting and fishing regulations across the province. Because generally, I think we can agree, hunters and anglers, they seek to go outdoors to get away from large groups of people.
The 2020 hunting season began on May 1st with the spring bear hunt. Cole Promain, TVT News.
Thunder Bay woman has now been identified as the victim in a fatal car crash near Red Lake last Friday. Around 3:30 in the morning, 22-year-old Vanessa Rivers was driving a vehicle that left the roadway and came to rest on a frozen body of water adjacent to the road. When police arrived, they located the young woman dead at the scene. The police investigation has also revealed that the car was taken without the owner's consent. Anyone who witnessed the collision or has information relating to it are asked to contact the OPP. And after several weeks of rock-bottom gasoline prices due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the price of the pump is on the rise across Canada and especially here in the Northwest. Up until Wednesday, the average price in Thunder Bay was about 84 cents a litre. But as of Thursday, most local stations were charging anywhere from 91.9 up to 95.9 cents for regular unleaded. The price hike comes as crude oil continues to trade at under $20 a barrel. With so few cars on the road and people staying home, customers we spoke to say they don't understand why the prices are on the rise.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's just when they can get the money for the gas, they raise those rates, and we don't really have a choice in the matter.
I was surprised when we drove up because holy cow, it already went up 8 cents since yesterday. And well, it happens in this country. I don't know how they can justify an increase that quick overnight, but they do, and can't do anything about it, I guess. You can complain about it, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere.
Well, I'm somewhat surprised. When I was downtown yesterday, I noticed the price was in the 80s. Now all of a sudden it's gone up, and there's no excuse for that. The price of oil is way down. There's no justification for it.
The Thunder Bay area has seen a higher than average jump in prices compared to the rest of Canada. The national average price rose about 4 cents over the past week, from 76 cents per litre to just over 80. That's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.